So I just watched Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again. It's really good. So I watched the first Mamma Mia for the first time a couple of days ago. I had never seen it before because it just honestly never appealed to me, and it is rubbish. I did not like anything about it. I thought it was completely devoid of charm, and it's a shame because you think the musical with ABBA songs should be kind of good, but it was just not. Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again, on the other hand, is just really, really likeable, enjoyable, and everything that didn't work in the first movie works here. I cannot believe it. I genuinely, I went in expecting this to be pretty bad as well, and it turned out to be an absolute delight. I was smiling and laughing the whole time. Songs were coming on and I was really getting into it. I loved this movie and I don't know what to do with that. So the first movie had quite bland and boring cinematography, like the way things were filmed. It felt very cheap looking at it. This one is much better done in terms of that. Like, just the visuals are kind of stunning and nice. It has all these sweeping vistas and shots of the island and things. But then, like, when you get the big crowd numbers, the musical numbers, you see all that. And it's done in a way that feels much more like a classic musical. You know, it does things like there's the panning shot where everyone's like stood in front of each other and they all like dip off to the sides, or like it'll show like a big like crowd dancing them and they're all going like. It's delightfully fun, but there's also like some really good just cinema tricks. Like there's match cuts in there. I noticed so many match cuts in this movie. The opening shot of this movie, you see the hotel from the water, and the kind of camera pans in. And then someone is holding a postcard with that view on it. And so that's such a good opening shot. And there's things like Amanda Seyfried at one point is like folding up one of Dominic Cooper's shirts, and then it cuts to Dominic Cooper putting on a shirt of the same colour, like in the same position. It's like really good match cuts in this movie. It's a weird one to say that it's a spoiler for in this movie, because even though you might know things, like specific things that are going to happen, it's not really plot. There's not much of a plot to this movie, and that's kind of in its favour, because it's not really about like some story, it's just about having a bit of fun, and that's what I did. The big thing to talk about in this movie, I guess, is that Meryl Streep's character, Donna, is dead. That's not even a spoiler because they established that from within like the first scene. She died like a year before the events of this movie. And I don't know if it's that Meryl Streep didn't want to make a full other movie of this, or if it's just that she had a scheduling conflict, because she does actually turn up at the end as kind of almost like a ghost in a scene. I do find it weird though that Meryl Streep, considering that she's only in the movie at the very, very end, was used to advertise this movie. Like, she is in all the posters, she's in the trailers. They are really trying to sell this on Meryl Streep's in the movie, and then she's kind of not in the movie. A much better presence in this movie, who again only shows up near the end, but once she comes, does she leave her mark, is Cher. Cher is playing Meryl Streep's mother, Amanda Seyfried's grandmother, and she's some kind of famous singer, I guess, or something, I don't know. But she shows up at this party, uninvited, because of course, and she's just kind of, she's not being mean or anything, you know, she's a bit above it, clearly, a bit self-centered, but she's still trying for a change. Like, you get the feeling that no one's liked this character throughout most of their lives, and now she is here actually trying to make it work with this family, and that's a nice thing to see. But throughout the movie they've dropped these little hints about, the mother's romance in the past that didn't go so well. And there's this other character played by Andy Garcia, who's Señor Sinfuego. And he mentions about how he once had his heart broken and now he feels like he can never love again. And then the two of them, Cher and Andy Garcia, lock eyes across the party. And he's just like, Lucia, Fernando. Can you hear the drums, Fernando? And it's so good. It's like the lamest excuse, I think, to get that song in there, but it works. Because this movie knows exactly how stupid it is. Like, the first one, I won't say it took itself seriously, but it didn't play things campy enough. This one, everything, like the camp is turned up to 11, and it is brilliant. There's two plots to this movie, kind of. There's the current day one, which is Amanda Seyfried trying to open the hotel, and things not going exactly to plan, but then her dad's turn up and it's all fine. The other one is Lily James playing young Meryl Streep, and just kind of going through the events that you got in that bit at the start of the first movie when she's reading the diary. And I think they altered some things here and there just so they could work in different stuff. She meets the young Colin Firth, who's played by the guy who was in W1A, who I really like, but I can never remember his name. As per usual, I will write it up there once I look it up after making the video. They meet in France in this one, whereas I think in the original they did meet on the island, but they meet in France so that there's an excuse for them to do Waterloo, which I'm so glad they did, because that is, other than Fernando, that is my favourite song in this movie. That is my favourite number, because, again, it's like old people dancing around this restaurant, and that's where they do a bunch of the big musical things. One of the dancers is in a wheelchair, which is really cool to see. That's not a thing you see in a lot of big, Hollywood musicals. And it's not even, played off as some special thing that, oh, look, we've got this person in a wheelchair. She's just kind of in the background. And there's one shot that focuses on him where it's, panning up, and, everyone's dancing around her, and she's spinning in a circle in the middle. But it doesn't feel like it's forced, it just feels like, yeah, so, we've got a person in a wheelchair, move on. Again, just seeing things like that made me smile and made me enjoy myself while watching it. And I feel like that's the best thing you can say about a musical, is that I had a good time. When I saw The Greatest Showman, I thought it wasn't a very good movie, but I had a really fun time watching it. And that is kind of the same with this one. There's definitely beats to the plot where it's like, wait, hang on, that doesn't... What about that thing you... for example, with that character, young Colin Firth, after she leaves him in Paris and goes to Greece and goes to this island, he follows her to Greece, and you see him waiting at the dock to head to the island, and then you never see him again. He doesn't turn up until the very end of the movie, where they're having the big final musical number to Super Trooper, where everyone's dancing together. And it's like, did you just forget about him? Oh. But it didn't annoy me. I'm thinking about it, and it's like, yeah, that maybe could have been better done, but at the same time, I don't care, because I had fun. I'm sure there's a million little things I could probably nitpick, but I don't care, because one, it's such a marked improvement over the first one, so much better than the first one, it is insane. And two, that it's just a really fun musical, and there's some really good jokes in there, some really great gags. My favourite line in it, which might be my favourite line I've heard in any movie this year, or possibly in any movie ever, is when Christine Baranski and Julie Walters, the Donna's friends from the first movie, show up to the island, and as they're driving up to the hotel, they stop, and Andy Garcia meets them halfway, and Christine Baranski just goes, "Be still, my beating vagina." And I'm pretty sure that I nearly had drink come out of my nose when I was because I was taking a drink. I nearly did a spit take in the theatre at that line. It was so funny, and they have so much more personality in this one than they did in the first one. The first one, I thought they were kind of boring. This one, they're a lot more fun. And they play a lot more with the two of them, and the other characters being older. Just some little bits when they're doing Dancing Queen, which they repeat from... There's a couple of songs they repeat from the first movie, but whatever. They're doing Dancing Queen, and it gets to the bit where it's young and sweet, only 17. And while it's singing that line, it focuses on Christine Baranski, Pierce Brosnan, and Julie Walters, and they all go... It's just little bits like that. It's yeah, you're having fun this time. Speaking of Pierce Brosnan, he does sing again. In fact, he reprises SOS like he did in the first movie. But whereas in the first movie it was so bad because his singing was so flat and bland, in this movie it's this really sweet moment where he's looking over pictures of Donna, who has passed away a year ago, and everyone's still kind of broken up about it, especially with opening the hotel, which was her dream. And he sits and he's singing SOS quietly to himself while he looks at these pictures, and it's really sad. And it's like, you managed to take one of the goofiest, most stupid things from the first movie that people criticise and turn it into this moment that is genuinely giving me feelings. And that is something special. This movie is so much better than I was expecting. I cannot give it enough praise for that. Genuinely, even if you hated the first movie, I would recommend watching this. It is just that much of a good time. Seriously, I can't believe I am the one saying this, but yes, go watch Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again. There was something in the air that night, the stars were bright, Fernando. There was something there for you and me, for liberty, Fernando. You'll notice that you waited until after I'd finished filming my video to turn up, didn't you?